Welcome to another session on supply chain. Basically, supply chain is the buying, managing the demands, the supply, and the process of obtaining goods and services and delivering them to your customers. And supply chain, most of SMMEs ignore this part or the supply chain process and the understanding of the process because some book says supply chain is where money is made or lost. Depending on the supply chain processes that a business puts in place, it can be make or break for the business. So you need to have proper supply chain strategies in place for your business to be successful. What does that mean to have supply chain processes in place? We'll go into each processes because it's made up of about 6 components. The first one is on the demand side, to say there must be demand. For you to buy something, first it must come from a demand. Once there's a demand, then there's an acquisition process, the buying process. There must be a process that needs to be followed for you to buy an item. And then once you buy the item, it's either like on cash on delivery or contract, but there must be contract management. If it's delivered on cash, you guys agree the item will be delivered at a certain point and the expiry dates and all that, and if certain things are broken or rotten, what is the process, what is your policies around it, the return of those products. That's contract management. And the fourth one is on the logistics side of things. How will the product get to you? Will the supplier deliver or will you go collect? Because it costs money for someone to deliver or for you to go collect. So it needs to be something that you're conscious about. And the fifth one is on the disposal. You bought if it's a product, you bought it, and then how are you going to dispose it? If you bought a desk, for argument's sake, you use it for 5 years, how are you going to dispose it? If you are using certain products, your cooking oil in, let's say it's a fast food restaurant, what do you do with that cooking oil after you have used it? Do you sell it? Do you dispose it? And some they use, call it medical supplies. How do you dispose medical supplies is different from how you dispose things that are biodegradable, for argument's sake. So the disposal, it becomes important in certain industries. How you dispose it, it needs to be compliant with legislation. Certain products are legislated to be disposed, and then to do risk and performance management at the end of the supply chain. Doesn't matter how small it is, you need to analyze the risk and the performance to see if you are using optimal strategies in your supply chain process. Because supply chain, that's where you make profit or you lose money as a business. Yes, you might have a product. Depending on the type of product that you're selling, you might go to market at a certain price. But if you make sure that your supply chain processes are efficient, you can make extra margins on the prices that you're selling for. It's important for SMME to be intentional and think about their supply chain process and make sure that those supply chains are, one, they are streamlined, but as well there are processes and procedures and systems in place to make sure that, let's say you are a one-man show, if you don't have systems in place, the day you are sick, no one can buy stuff for you, can deliver, it will not be possible for your business to deliver on services that is providing because you haven't documented your supply chain process. Systems are important. I think you can pick up from most of my lessons where I emphasize on systems, and supply chain processes are driven by systems. And I know sometimes SMME, they ignore this component, but that's where you lose your competitive advantage in certain industries. For example, one of the main case studies that we use is the McDonald's franchise. One of their key success is streamlining their supply chain. When Ray took over the McDonald's, he made sure that he engage with the suppliers, even at the time that it was still few stores, 2-4 stores, but he engaged with the suppliers in terms of the quality of the product that are delivered. One, the quantities, how they're supposed to be delivered. Initially, they were receiving like your half-cut bun. When it gets to the store, the employees have to cut the bun in full to be 2 separate buns. But he realized that it takes a few seconds, I guess, on each bun for an employee to cut it. But if he asks the supplier just to bring them fully cut, then it will save him those few seconds per bun. And that made a lot of a difference in their profit margins. And even in the supply of, call it the chips, the packaging, how the chips are packaged, it makes a difference. It might be, you might think, no, it's going to save me 2 minutes here for me to open it, this package this way. But if you had engaged with your suppliers, like the McDonald's rate has done from the onset, you could have saved yourself those 2 minutes. If it's something that you do every day, if you save in 2 minutes every day, that's a lot of hours when you look at over a year. Supply chain and engagement with your suppliers, it becomes very, very important. As I said, supply chain is the cornerstone of the McDonald's franchise. Because if you're a franchise, you want your suppliers to deliver same quality product consistently, following the same process. But if they don't, you might not be supplying the standard quality product that you want to deliver. So engaging with your suppliers, understanding their processes, understanding different suppliers and the type of product that they supply, and looking at your operation to say, how can I optimize my supply chain processes? Engage with the suppliers where you see area of improvements, or look at different product, the sizes of the products that they are supplying. You might find that you build a house using smaller bricks, but you can use bigger bricks for argument's sake to build the same house. It will take less effort, less bricks probably, and because if you're building with smaller bricks, then you need more time for you to build compared to if you're using blocks to build. So you need to look at the supply chain. Don't accept it as it is. Look at area of improvement. Look at the opportunities that are there, and look at the relationships that you can maximize to make sure that your supply chain process is efficient and you are making as much as you can make from that supply chain process, because you might be leaving a certain percentage of margins in your supply chain process. And sometimes there are certain things that you don't have to do it yourself. It's like with us in terms of the training, we've taken a conscious decision to say we're not going to have too many facilitators. We'll rather have enter into SLA with different facilitators, and we engage them whenever we need a facilitator. So that now, it saves us cost if we don't have trainings. But unlike if we had employed facilitators and you find that you are not fully utilizing them in your down months, and then you are fully utilizing them in your up months. But you could have saved that cost by not having them full-time on board, but use a service level agreement or contract, whatever the method that you are using to acquire their services. That's part of the supply chain. We understood that our sector is we're not focusing on training your working students. We focus on corporate market. So the corporate market is not consistent over a year. So you find that we have projects and certain months is dry, you don't have project. But if, given the business model that we're running, if we're hiring facilitators, you'll end up sitting with facilitators who don't have anything to do because it will be a down month. So that now it wouldn't have been an efficient process. So for your business as well, it's very, very important to understand the activities that are going on. And then looking at the activities that you are performing for you in terms of achieving what you want to achieve or supplying the product that you want to supply. Look at your supply chain processes to say, what can I streamline? You might find that you go buy whatever that you're using, chips for argument's sake, you go buy them every day. Rather, maybe invest in the fridge, buy in bulk. Because buying in bulk, it might save you transport for you to travel to the supplier every day to go buy chips. That cost, you might make a good return on the fridge that you have bought. And that now, it doesn't only save you the transport money, but it also saves you the time of that person who's supposed to go and buy that product. It just goes, let's say it goes once a week instead of going every day. By looking at the supply chain to say, I buy chips every day, what do I need? What infrastructure should I put in place to make sure that operationally I'm as efficient as possible? Now, that's understanding the supply chain, and look at the suppliers that you're buying from. Should I buy from this supplier or that supplier? Then you look at the advantages and the disadvantages of buying from each supplier. You analyze the benefits that you are getting as a business from different suppliers. And from there, you decide on which suppliers gives you a more competitive advantage than the other. You might find the other one is cheaper, but is selling you a bad quality product, and the other one is a little bit more expensive, but is selling you a quality product and he delivers. And then the way they are packaged, they save you time. So you might find that the cheaper products are not necessarily even beneficial, because when they arrive, you still have to unpack them and all that. Probably the one that are more expensive, they come pre-packed and all that. So when they come in, they save you time of unpacking and repacking and all that. Those ones come pre-packed, and these ones are cheap, but you still have to pack them. So there's a inefficiency when it comes to time. As an SMME, you need to look at your supply chain, look at the process that you can streamline. You might find that you're going to town to buy chips. On Monday, on Tuesday, you go to buy maybe bread if it's not delivered, and then on Wednesday, you go buy cooking oil. Instead of streamlining your processes, making sure that you find the best way, maybe it will be best for you to buy on Tuesday, because it covers the stuff that you're going to buy on Tuesday, and buy for the stuff that you're going to need on Wednesday, and buy the stuff that you're going to need to utilize on Monday to replace the Thursday one. Supply chain, it's a very, very important process within your organization. It's basically when you need a product, how do you buy it? Logistically, how do you get it to your premises? And then how do you manage the contract between you and the supplier? And then how do you dispose it after you have used it? And do you do an analysis to see how did that product perform throughout the system? That's the most important one, the analysis, and identify the risk that comes with it. Because as I give an example, if you're buying something cheaper, maybe it might give you higher profit margins, but it might get you customers that you don't want, customers that wants to buy a cheaper product. And you find that the market that you are servicing, the lucrative ones are the ones that are looking for quality product. It becomes a balance. You need to review all the products that you buy. You take them through your supply chain to say, what is my demand? Should I increase the demand, decrease the demand, depending on the processes? How do I do the acquisition? Where do I buy? How do I buy? When do I buy? That's the acquisition part that you need to make sure that you understand, and you make sure that it's optimal. Third one is on the logistics. How do you get it here? Is it delivered or do you collect? Sometimes you underestimate the cost implication of you collecting products from suppliers. You need to look at, there might be supplier that's a little bit more expensive, but they deliver. Look at the cost, analyze the cost of your supply chain processes. Is it actually cheaper for me to go there, given that One, you need to spend time. Two, you're spending transport money to go collect. And three, remember, if you bought it and something happened between where you bought it and home, it becomes your risk. But if the supplier is delivering, if anything happened between from their factory gate to your gate, it's not your responsibility. So there's also certain risks that you'll be taking on your supply chain process. If you are going to buy it yourself, the risk that you're taking on the transportation and damages that can happen along the way, they fall onto you. But if the supplier is delivering, then they are for the supplier. So it might seem marginal and unimportant, but when you do a risk and the performance analysis of each product that you're buying and the best way of buying it, you might find that there's few hours you can save there. There can be certain costs that you can save. Remember, time is money. Sometimes we don't, as SMMEs, we don't see it that way. So you might find that you buy, let's say you're selling chickens. You buy live chickens instead of slaughtered chickens. You say, no, the slaughtered chickens are more expensive. But when you buy them, let's say you buy 10 every day, there must be someone who slaughter the chickens and then unplug them and all that and cut them and package them, compared to buying cut and packaged chickens. Yes, the pricing might be a little bit different and the market might be different. Your market might want live chickens instead of the slaughtered chickens. Then that's a totally different story. But for you, you might say buying live chickens is cheaper because you are saving 10 rand. But only to find out that 10 rand you spend 30 minutes doing one chicken, and then you find that maybe you're not even earning 10 rand per 30 minutes. Maybe your cost is 20 rands per 30 minutes. So that means the 10 rand that you thought you were saving by buying the live chicken might actually be the cost that you are losing on the time that you're spending cleaning up the cleaning and cutting the chicken. So supply chain has got a lot of hidden costs that if you don't investigate it, you don't understand the process that you followed, you don't understand the activities that are involved in your supply chain process, you might find that you're leaving a lot of money in the process. And that's what makes most SMMEs not to be competitive when it comes to pricing. It's like when you have spaza shops in the area, one owner will go buy whatever that they need and put in the store. The next door will go buy, the other one across the road or wherever will go buy on their own, instead of them consolidating their supply chain, understanding who's buying what when, so that when you're traveling you can buy in bulk, not even for negotiated prices, because that's another benefit. But we're just talking about the logistics side, to say you guys are spending, the three of you are spending more or less, let's say, an hour to go buy your stock. You're spending an hour, that's 3 hours. You're spending petrol on the petrol money to go buy those items. But if you looked at your supply chain and understood your competition and their supply chain, you could have negotiated something with them to say, at least maybe one of us can go and buy for all of us. So you would have saved 3 trips or 2 trips, which for a small business can be significant, because that 4 trips or 3 trips, 2 trips, whatever that you could be saving, it could be a discount that you're giving to clients. For SMMEs not to look at their supply chain and take that supply chain process for granted, that's where they lose a lot of money. Remember, sometimes businesses are the matter of the savings that you can make in between. It's margins. Once you can give customers better price, better margins, then you will be successful in the business, and you can be more competitive rather than ignoring your supply chain process and following the expensive route, where now it means you need to make sure that your pricing, you add more pricing to your product. And then The other benefit of looking at your supply chain, as I mentioned, maybe you are 10 spaza shops in one area, instead of going to buy individually. If you buy as a group, for instance, you have a certain date, time where you guys, maybe you have a truck, one truck goes by on your behalf. You can actually negotiate the prices with the suppliers, because you are more or less buying as in bulk, without you being in any formal partnership. By just buying together, it can be, depending on the size of your stock, how much you buy or the value of your purchases. You might find that there might be 10% negotiation where you're buying from, in terms of, because you're buying in bulk and quantities. That now will translate into the saving, or it will translate into you providing your customers with affordable or well-priced product, instead of you going on your own to go buy, and then the cost of that you need to obviously add on to your product. So yes, there are certain products that needs to be custom made. They can't do mass buying or mass processing, like I'm giving example now. Yes, those obviously they are specialized. You have to go buy on your own. You might find that you don't have any other suppliers or any other similar businesses in your area. You are forced to go buy on your own. But in the event where you have different, let's say you find that there are daycares, you have 10 daycares in one area, but still when they go buy for on their own. So they spend transport money, they spend they transport, the time that they're going there, they could be teaching their kids. But because they didn't analyze the supply chain and look at potential partners that they can work with to make sure that they improve their supply chain, then they end up being inefficient, and you end up losing money in the process. So supply chain, it gets a little attention even from the training side of things, and we look at supply chain from, call it, large institution or government, because the supply chain, it becomes very, very important in government. But even for small businesses, supply chain is a critical process where margins are made, profits are made in supply chain. So as an entrepreneur, you need to make sure that you understand your supply chain. You look at the opportunities that exist in that space. Where can I save money? Where can I improve the process? Is the product that I'm receiving the best product that I can use in my process? Or is there a better product? Is it a better size? It could be a size thing. You find that maybe, I don't know, you're processing roof trusses, for argument's sake. You get your trusses in certain length. You need to join them when you're preparing a roof or whatever. So you might decide to say, no, I'd rather get a certain size from a certain supplier, because if I buy from that supplier, I don't have a problem of coming home and joining the trusses, because they will be the size that I'm looking for. So it's very, very important to understand the inputs that are required in your business. One, you analyze the activities that goes on in your business. You understand the process. Is it you buy raw material, you process them, you deliver them to customers, and then and you store them. Those are your activities. But for you to make sure that you save as much as you can from that process, you need to analyze this first process. What inputs goes into the buying of raw material? Where do I buy? Do I get the best discount? Do they deliver? Or do I collect? Can I buy? Can I club together with a similar supplier or similar business that we can buy together, so that we benefit from, one, saving time, two, and saving transport costs, three, negotiating discounts. And then on each and every activity that happens within the business, you need to do similar exercise. And not only on the performance side to say what can you save what are the benefits and all that, but what are the risks as well? If you're buying in bulk, what are the risks that maybe the competitor knows what you're buying, which they will buy as well, and they will compete with you in terms of the products that you're buying. So they are not only you're not looking at only the benefits, but you look at the risk as well. And even how you structure your supply chain processes. You need to make sure that you avoid risk as much as possible. In a supply chain, make sure you don't buy stolen goods. I know sometimes they become attractive. You're thinking you're going to make better margins, but the risks are just too high. You rather find a way to buy cheaper or efficiently. Let me say, it might not be cheaper, but you might buy efficiently in a way that you club together with people to buy, to reduce on transport cost and travel cost. Or you find the supplier that sells you a process that is designed to fit into your production process. As I said, like with Ray Kroc, the supplier initially was cutting the bun half, and then he asked that, can you just cut it fully, so that when it arrives, we don't have to worry about, because we have to cut it full anyway, but we're doing it in store. So I'm spending a lot of man hours, people cutting the bun. Yes, it can charge us extra. You might need to get an extra equipment to do that. But in a long run, then that becomes beneficial to the organization. That's the overall strategy when it comes to supply chain. Look at all the activities within your supply chain processes. Look at all the inputs. Look at how you buy those inputs, and look at the opportunities that are there to improve how you bring in those inputs. And then, but you need to analyze the risk as well, to say, what are the risks if I move to do my supply chain this way? What are the risks? Will I lose customers? Will it impact on the quality? Will it impact on my delivery time? Because sometimes you can look at your supply chain, look at the cheaper option, to only find that they don't deliver on time, or they deliver poor quality. Then that will have impact on your customers. When you're looking and strategizing on your supply chain, you need to make sure that you look at it globally, analyze the risk, analyze your target market, analyze the activities within the organization, and understand, make an informed decision on the best supply chain processes, because you might be a little bit inefficient in that process and end up losing a lot of money in the process. Now we're looking into the component of the supply chain. The demand side is the first phase of supply chain. To kickstart the supply chain, there must be demand. Either it's a demand from internally, like if you are manufacturing and all that, for you to produce certain goods and services, there must be a demand. Or it might be a demand from customer, like if you are in a retailer. To make sure that you run an efficient supply chain process, you need to understand the demands, right? And the demands must, one, be within the activities that you do. It must be in your focus area. Because sometimes customers will come to say, no, we need a Kindle. But I'm selling laptops, and buying a Kindle, it might not be as profitable, and it requires maybe additional activities, because I'm not buying from Amazon, for argument's sake. Maybe I'm dealing with Dell. So I have a relationship with Dell. We have an efficient process with Dell, but the customer comes and says, I need a Kindle. Then I say, no, I'll get it for you. But I don't understand the process at Amazon of buying and all that. I'm still going to spend time on the buying part. Price, I might maybe charge, 10%, 30% markup. And ultimately, you might find that markup is not that profitable because of the time that I'm going to spend in acquiring that specialized product. So even on the demand side, you don't just buy because the customer wants it, you buy it. You must do proper analysis to say, is it profitable? Is it efficient for me to spend time and resources on this product? Because focus is very important in business, because sometimes you want to do everything because there's money. Customer is offering you money. So you're thinking, no, I can just take advantage of this and all that. But you might find that it's distracting you from the process. Not everything that is demanded by the customer needs to be bought. You need to make sure that you make you do your analysis and you make your informed decision to things that you buy and sell if you are in retail. If you are manufacturing, the demand, you need to analyze your demand and understand it, because sometimes if you don't understand the demand in terms of what your business requires, you might end up buying more raw material or more inputs than required. And your employees, if you have employees, they might be stealing your raw material. You might be losing your raw material, or you might be buying more raw material than you need, and then some raw material gets stolen, some get lost, some get wasted, some expire. So you need to manage your demand. Understand to say, these are my quantities that I generally utilize within the process, and these are the quantities that I'm going to buy. Obviously, when dealing with the demand, you need to have the, what they call it, the order level. You need to know that if I bought so many books, and averagely I have so many customers, so I buy 100 books, and then my reorder level will be, when I'm remaining with 10 books, then I order from there. So that's now become an efficient method of keeping stock, because remember, buying a lot of material that you're not going to utilize now, you are basically putting money in the warehouse or in storage, because you need to buy the material based on what you need. And then, but you must be careful, that must not affect your service delivery to your customers. Yes, you must not hold more raw material or stock than you need, but that should not affect delivery to your customers. For argument's sake, you can, if you are running a spider shop, you can have 10 tin fish in your business, but maybe you're selling 2 tins per month. So it means you're gonna sell those 10 in 5 months. So you basically invested in stock. You've put money on the shelf without you turning it. But if you bought, let's say 6 instead of 10, even if 10 was cheaper because it was bulk, let's say they say 10 is 100 rand, then it's going to only take you 6 months to sell all of them. You'd rather buy 5, which is going to take you 3 months to sell. Let's say even if you buy those 5 at 10 rand more, that money that you received earlier, you can use it to buy other things that you can sell, and by the time you reach 6 months, you would have made more than 10 rand that you saved by buying in bulk. I don't know if that makes sense. So buying bulk is not always the best option for you as an entrepreneur. So you need to look at your demand and the utilization thereof. So if that bulk product is going to take you longer for you to convert it into cash, then forego the discount, buy the things that you will be able to sell quicker, so that you turn your margins over a shorter period of time rather than holding stock for over a long period of time. That's very, very inefficient. So you're basically leaving money on the shelf. So looking at your demand is very, very critical, and you should analyze your market and understand the consumption and how long you have to keep your product in stock. So I remember at some point I was just doing the financial analysis of like your Pick n Pay, as big as it is, and people going in every day, but their stock turnover was around 3 months. That's 90 days. So the stock that's sitting Pick n Pay averagely is 90 days. So they basically invested their money in stock for 90 days, but they're big enough and understand their supply chain is not as agile as maybe a small business. But if you are sitting there, you are a spaza shop, and your average stock turnover, meaning it takes you averagely 3 months to sell a product, then you need to relook at your business model, because the analysis of your demand, look at the product that you are holding for a longer period, and find a way to get them quicker and as in when the customer needs them, rather than having a lot of product on your shelf, because having a lot of product unnecessarily so, it's a cost of money, because money costs. The more you have money sitting on the shelf, it costs you, because that money you could have turned it over maybe 3 times, 4 times. And imagine if you are selling a product, let's say for 30%, it's 100 rand. If you say you turn it over every month, that means you are making 30 rand, 30 rand, 30 rand every month, rather than having a product that you've put on the shelf, you're only going to sell it after 3 months. That 10 rand saving that you made, you say I made a saving because I'm buying in bulk. You're actually losing money, because if you have bought fewer quantities, you could have bought other things that you could have sold in that month and made that 10 rand profit 3 times over by the time you sell the one that you bought in bulk. Demand is very important. You need to analyze your demand, and you don't just buy things in bulk because you have the money. Buy things that move. Make sure that you keep your stock holding to the most efficient level, meaning you need to know that you are not holding stock for more than is necessary, and on the other side, you don't make your customers suffer because you don't have product on the shelf. So you need to balance the two, putting the product on the shelf and the demand from customers. So you need to do that analysis to find your optimal stock point, to say, I reorder my stuff when I reach these quantities. And as I said, even for services, we don't print training material before that module starts, because we know we can use that money for printing that paper to do other things that will bring us the return until that module starts. I mean, if we have a qualification with 10 modules, Module 1 is done in January, Module 2 in Feb, so and so and so, and then you find that Module 10 is only done in October. We're not going to print a study material for the module that is going to be done in October. We don't print it in January, because that will be putting money in the shelf, in the storeroom, even if we give it to the student. But we can wait and give the material in month 8, for argument's sake. If the material is 100 rand, and we have other things that we can achieve, maybe 10% per month, not much, 10%. Then by the time it gets to the 10th month where the material is supposed to be used, we would have doubled that money. But if we had printed the material would be in the storeroom eating itself. That's where the demand becomes very important. The demand management is very important. You need to understand when you need goods and services, and understand when you order, how many in terms of the quantities, and how you're going to order them, so that you optimize the stock. You don't hold stock that is unnecessary. So it's very, very important. Understand your demand. Obviously, different businesses have different demands and different approaches, but unless if you are a warehouse, or your business model is to warehouse stock, then you can keep as much stock as you need. And there's a concept called just in time, where you're just buying things that you need when you need them. You don't keep stock, it's just in time, but it depends on the business that you are in. I mean, if I want to eat now, I'm hungry, you can't say I'll only buy a meal and make you pap when a customer comes. Sometimes you just make the pap and the customer will come and buy. So that in that case, you can apply this just-in-time principle. But you might find there are certain people who needs their laptop fixed, for argument's sake. You can't keep the parts at your shop because they're going to eat themselves. You buy them when they are required. It's like certain parts at the car dealerships. So when you go, maybe you got involved in an accident. Yes, the brake pads and all that, they keep them in stock. They keep sufficient, but they won't keep bumpers and wheels and all those things in stock, because they don't get replaced that often. Only when a person is involved in an accident and he brings the car to the mechanic, whatever, then that's when they're gonna order the part. Not just to keep the parts in storeroom if they know that they don't sell those parts frequently. That's the demand management. And generally, SMMEs that I deal with, they are managing their demand and the procurement of stock poorly. And that's why I saw that supply chain is very, very critical for SMMEs. As an owner or as a management of a small business or small to medium business, make sure that you understand your demand, you manage your acquisition the way you're supposed to. Know when you're going to need certain products. Don't keep products that you don't need in stock. That is the demand section. Make sure that you understand what your business needs in terms of the quantities and what your customers need, and then make sure that you keep optimal stock on hand. All right, now we just finished the demand side of the supply chain. Now we're looking at the acquisition side. The important thing is to understand the buying process. Make sure that you obtain quotations for certain products that you buy. Don't buy whatever that you get from the first supplier that you contact. Contact few suppliers. Make sure that you got proper quotations so that you are able to compare the prices, the quality, and all that. And continue shopping around. Even if you have a reliable supplier, continue shopping around to understand the market out there. And when you're buying products, make sure that one, they meet the quality requirements of your customers. It doesn't have to be high quality, because most entrepreneurs are focused on doing high quality stuff. You find that your customers, they just want a product. They don't care about the quality. They just want to eat. Let's say, for argument's sake, if you are a spaza shop or you are selling food, sometimes they can't afford the branded and high quality food that you want to buy, but they just want the cheap stuff so that they can fill up their stomach. So make sure that you understand what your customers need, as we discussed when we're discussing demand. And furthermore, make sure that when you buy from reputable suppliers, one, and shop around. Know who are the suppliers of inputs that you need, which one is providing what quality. Test them if it needs be, because it's very, very important. Because as I said, in the supply chain, in the buying process, that's where most of SMMEs lose money or leave margins that they could have maybe made by making sure that they buy from the right supplier, they buy at the right price, and logistically they are covered in terms of where they are buying from. Maybe they deliver or they don't, but make that assessment to say, when you buy, you assess the market, who can supply you, how many suppliers exist in the market, which suppliers are you going to approach, which suppliers are you going to buy from. Make sure that you get quotations from different suppliers so that you buy at the fair price and competitive price, rather than buying from the first supplier that you come across. That's very important. You can save a lot of money by shopping around, making sure that, but it's not a once-off. Once you've done, sometimes your suppliers can give discounts. So you need to keep tabs on who are the suppliers and understand, make sure that even though the last time that supplier gave you a discount or gave you a good price, you might find that in certain times or whatever, the other suppliers as well, they put their product on special. So when you're buying things, you don't just pick up a call because we are buying from so and so, I'm just gonna order and buy. No, check the prices. Make it a habit of checking the prices. Have a system in place to say, maybe, okay, you can't do it every time that you're buying something where you're getting the quotations and you're phoning around, but at least once a month, continuously keep it on record. Check regularly if there's no new supplier in town, or those suppliers, there are no price changes, so that you can save where you can save and buy at the best price that you can buy at. Okay, now we're looking at the third component, which is the logistics. Please don't underestimate the cost of transport. You know now petrol price is very high, so the transport cost is very high as well. So when you're buying your product, make sure that you look at the options from people who can deliver or people where you need to go collect, and maybe consolidate your buying as well. Don't go by town to go buy one item, tomorrow go again, on Wednesday you go and buy, because you're going to spend a lot of money on the road. And you might be spending that money on the road, but because how we do our costing sometimes is just bad, because we're not taking into account the cost of transport to collect those goods and services. So we just say, I'm buying the cup for 20,000 or for two rand, and then, but I still have to go buy it or go collect it. And to go collect it is another 2 rand. So now it's adding on that price. But because they gave me a price of 2 rand per cup, I'm not going to add the transport cost to the cost of the cup. I'll say, no, I'm selling my cups for 3 rand, forgetting that, one, I had to travel to go buy the cup. 2, I spent time going to go buy the cup. I could have done something. Remember, there's value for money. So value of time. Because if you spend time on the road not doing something, then there's an opportunity cost. You could have done something that would have brought you money. You could have done the marketing and all that. But you spending time going to town to go buy the cups. That time, you don't include it in the cost of the cup. You might end up selling the cup for 3 rand, bought it for 2 rand. You forgot to take into account the transport cost. You forgot to take into account your time to buy the product. Forgot to take into account the risk of you going to buy the product. Sometimes they break along the way and all that. So forgetting all those costs, and you don't include them in the price of this cup, you might end up thinking you're selling it at 50% profit if you bought it for 2 rand and you're selling it for 3 rand. To only find out that the transport cost and the time that you spend going to buy and the risks that are involved that they can break along the way, they make the cup 350. But because you are only looking at the price that you actually paid for the product, then you might be making a loss, and you don't understand why you're not making money as a business, because you forgot about the logistics that are involved in buying. Don't forget the logistics that are involved in your supply chain processes. And once you understand the logistics that you involve, you need to make a informed decision to say, do I buy individually every day? Do I continue to buy? If that's not unnecessary, maybe consolidate your buy. We buy once a week. Make sure that you understand your demand that we spoke about earlier, and then you understand your acquisition process, the buying process, and then organize logistically to say, maybe you can buy on Wednesday, and find somebody who goes to town often, or there might be someone who goes to town or wherever you're buying your product on certain days. Then you can ask the person to collect the stuff for you and bring them for you, and the cost might be cheaper than you traveling every day to go buy that product. The logistics, it's very, very, very important. Sometimes we ignore the logistics, and then we end up running at a loss, not making a profit, because we ignored the logistics in our business. And as well in training, sometimes where we transport maybe our facilitators from one province to another. Maybe this facilitator is giving us a good price of facilitation a day, but you forget that us transporting the person, going there, the accommodation that we have to pay for them, the time that they have to spend on the road traveling and all that, it would have been better if we found a facilitator in that province to facilitate for us. The rate might be a little bit higher, but time-wise, the person leaving, let's say Limpopo, going to Gauteng to facilitate on our behalf, one, he needs to leave a day before, maybe come back a day after. That's cost. And then the person is away from their family and all that. But if we had found someone in Gauteng to facilitate for us in Gauteng, then it made it easier. The person can facilitate and go home. So you'll only be charging us for the facilitation fee. Maybe that's few kilometers that they have to travel to training place. But sometimes because we have a relationship here with a certain facilitator, we transport them to Gauteng to do the facilitation there. And that becomes cost ineffective. Without analyzing your logistics, you might lose a lot of money in the process. You might end up not even understanding, because we're not taking it into account, you might not even understand where you're losing money because you're not analyzing the logistics involved in your business. That is the logistics, which is the third component of our supply chain. We spoke about the demand, we spoke about the acquisition, now logistics. Now we're going to go into contract management. The fourth one is on contract management. We're still on our supply chain processes. Contract management is simply to say you need to know the terms and conditions of the things that you buy. If it's a facilitator that you're using, you need to know the terms and conditions and comply with the contract. If you are buying products, you need to know terms and conditions of the products that you buy. The conditions for you to return the product. Can you return the product? When are you allowed to return the product? And then make sure that you understand the conditions under which you can return the products. Because if it's open, you can return it. Certain things, if you wear it, you can return it. So in that, when you're dealing with your customers, understand the contracts that you're signing. It might be a simple delivery note. You might find that delivery note has got conditions there. To say, if you sign for this, you accept that you check the expiry date, you check the quantity, you weigh the whatever that is that they are delivering. By just signing a delivery note or signing an invoice, they say sign here so that you can get you. But those things have conditions in there. So when you're buying things, make sure that you understand the conditions that are written there. Make sure that you read the description, you understand the quantities that you're signing for, the price that you're signing for. Make sure that you understand the expectation from the supplier or the expectation from you. Because without you reading the terms and conditions of the goods and services that you're buying, you will end up in trouble. You end up buying things that you don't need, or buying things and doing something that you're not supposed to have done, should have you read the terms and conditions. So it's very, very important when you're dealing with suppliers, when you're buying stuff, to make sure that you understand the terms and conditions, you understand what is expected from you, when the conditions or the reason that you can return goods and services and all that. So make sure that you have that in order. You don't just sign for things that you buy. Make sure that you understand the terms, and when you don't understand, you ask questions, because you might end up buying things that will cost you money. So managing the contract part is very important. Sometimes you're in a hurry, you don't sign, you just sign for the sake of receiving the goods or the service, but that shouldn't be done if you're running a business. And make it a culture within your organization to read terms and conditions. Make it a policy. Your employees need to understand that when they receive goods and services, they count them if they have to. They need to check them for expiry dates if they should. If they expire, they weigh them if they should be weighed. Make sure that there is a process that is followed when people are receiving the goods and signing for them. Because by signing, you're entering into a contract with the person you supply. So make sure that you understand the condition of those goods, why you're receiving them. Are they correct quantities? Are they correct sizes? Are the pricing is right before you sign that delivery note, or before you sign that invoice or that contract. So it's very, very important to make sure that you understand in terms of in your supply chain processes, the contract management. You don't just sign, you read the terms and conditions. All right, and the fifth one, we're talking about the disposal management. But okay, this we're not going to discuss it for long, because it's more specialized nature. When you buy things, there are certain things that needs to be disposed in a certain way. Like if you are dealing with like a medical waste, there's a certain way that you can dispose medical waste. You not dispose it like things that are biodegradable, for argument's sake. In terms of disposal, you need to have a policy in place to say, if we have goods and services, certain services or certain goods are disposed in a certain way, and there's a process that needs to be followed, it must be properly documented, so that the employees, even if you are not there, they know the process that needs to be followed. Because if you dispose medical supplies or medical waste in a certain way, then you might be in trouble, you might be fined if you're found to be breaking the law, because there is a law on how you dispose them. And other things are, if you are disposing of, you are selling consumable products or food, you don't dispose it by giving it to the poor or charities and all that, because if they get sick from it, you might be in trouble. So you must have a policy around how you dispose goods and services that are used or that are rotten, that are obsolete, so that you don't get in trouble. Because there are certain things you can say, no, hey, this food is expired, we can give it to those people on the street and they get sick, and then you might get in trouble if it is discovered that the cause of whatever their sickness is from the product that you gave them. And some things you need to dispose it in a certain way. As I said, most especially like that comes to mind is your medical waste, and then as well as the oil, the cooking oils and all that. You don't just pour them in a tray. You need to dispose them in a certain way. And some products like your cooking oil, talking about cooking oil or used oil, if you are servicing maybe equipment that use oil, then that oil you can recycle it and sell it, and then you can generate a certain revenue from the used oil, rather than just disposing it whichever way you want to dispose it. But you need to understand the sector. You need to understand what are the legislative requirements from your sector. But as well, just look at opportunities, because supply chain is full of opportunities. Let's say if you are running a chicken business, the waste from the chickens can be sold as fertilizer or manure. You can actually sell it, or you can actually use it maybe in your garden or whatever. So there might be value from the used products or the byproduct from what you're selling. So make sure that you understand and find markets for it if need be. Like if you're selling chickens, the chicken waste, then you can maybe sell it to the farmers or whoever. Then you can make extra money from the waste disposal. But there are certain waste that you need to dispose it in a certain way. I know that there's a drive on the IT staff disposal. There are certain organizations that are willing to pay for IT waste, for argument's sake. And then as well as maybe you might have a policy on disposal of maybe your capex. If not waste, but old laptops, maybe your policy might be saying you must donate them to charities. I know in government, they encourage them to donate them to schools. If they are renewing their laptop contracts, old laptops, they donate them to schools. So you must have a disposal policy when it comes to your organization. Know, one, how you dispose certain things, so that even the employees, they know, they don't get in trouble. Because if you don't have a disposal policy, employees sometimes, let's say you are in a restaurant, for argument's sake, they just intentionally make waste. And then so that if you don't have a policy on how to dispose it, then they'll be making themselves lunch. To say, no, this one was a wrong order. The customer said they didn't want it, so we disposed it. But if you don't have the policy there, they can make wrong orders regularly, so that they can have free lunch. But if you have a disposal policy, then it becomes different. It can help you to manage your business, save you costs in terms of unnecessary waste, and then find maybe markets for those products if it's possible. So you must have a policy around disposing your goods and services within your your organization. There might be cents there or margins that can be saved. So that's that on disposal of goods and services as part of the supply chain. Okay, now we're going into the last component of supply chain on this introductory video, which is performance management, which is very important, but I emphasize it even from the beginning of the video to say, look, sometimes we enter into the business. Initially we do, yes, we get the quotations and all those things, but we don't regularly monitor the performance of the suppliers. We don't regularly monitor the performance of the goods that we're buying, and we don't regularly monitor the pricing and the changes in the market. In terms of the performance management, when it comes to supply chain, you need to monitor the performance of your suppliers in terms of quality, the standards that they are maintaining. You need to monitor the pricing in the market. You need to make sure that you're buying at the best price. You need to make sure that you monitor the performance of the products that you're buying, because over time, products evolve. You might be buying from one supplier, but to only realize that the product that you buy is not of the same quality as the one that you used to buy. So you need to actually make sure that you monitor your supply chain processes regularly. Make sure that what you've decided a year ago might not be relevant in terms of where you're buying certain products. So you need to revisit such things to see, is this the best option? Is this the most efficient approach to our supply chain process? So in conclusion, you need to make sure that you review the performance of your supply chain processes, because you might be losing money by not reviewing the processes that you're following, or there might be certain inefficiencies within your supply chain processes that will make you not competitive in terms of the pricing or delivery to customers. So supply chain is very important within the organization. It's not only for large organizations. Even SMMEs, you need to make sure that you review the performance regularly. Make sure that you continuously improve where you can. I thank you.